Hello. I wanted to do a story with you guys today that shows honor and reflects the devotion of a teacher. This is National Teacher Appreciation Week this week. We're missing it because we're not at school and we're not there to just do those little things for our teachers every day like you guys normally do. So today I found it's called the Children's Book of Heroes. And there is a teacher in this book that is a hero. And as you guys are learning right now through this whole quarantine time and this distance learning, our teachers at Legacy truly are heroes. Like, they have done an amazing job of navigating this whole season that's been thrown at them, that's new, and we just want to celebrate them. And then you parents that have become teachers by no choice of your own, maybe through all of this, enjoy this story, because at the end of the day, whether you're a teacher or you're a parent, parents still do a ton of teaching with our kids. So I hope this story just inspires you, either way, to just that how much everything that we do as teachers or parents, just people that are involved in the lives of children, how much we can make such a difference and an impact on their lives. So today, our story is called Helen Keller's Teacher. I'm gonna show you some of the pictures here so you can see little Helen Keller's over here sitting with a doll. And then we're gonna learn here just a little bit who this woman is that became a very big part of Helen Keller's life. So, some of the luckiest boys and girls are the ones who have teachers as heroes. So our story begins with Helen Keller was not like most little girls. She could not see the flowers blooming in her yard, or the butterflies floating from blossom to blossom, or the white clouds that drifted across the high blue sky. She could not hear birds singing in the treetops outside, or the laughing and singing of the other children while they play. Little Helen was blind and deaf. And because she could not hear people talking, Helen had never learned to speak. She could clutch her mother's dress and follow her around the house, but she did not know how to say to her, "I love you." She could climb into her father's lap, but she could not ask him, "Will you read me a story?" She lived in a dark, quiet world where she felt all alone. One afternoon, she was almost 7 years old, and Helen stood on her porch. She could feel a warm glow on her face, but she did not know it came from the sun. She smelled the sweetness of the honeysuckle vine growing beside her house, but she did not know what it was. Suddenly, Helen felt 2 arms wrap around her and hold her close. She knew at once it was not her mother or her father, and at first she kicked and scratched and hit, trying to drive the stranger away. But then she began to wonder who it might be. She reached out and felt the stranger's face, then her dress, and then the big suitcase that she carried with her. How was Helen to understand that this young woman was Annie Sullivan, who had come to live with Helen and be her teacher? Annie had brought a present. She gave Helen a doll. Then she put her fingers against Helen's hand and made the signs that Helen could feel, and Annie spelled slowly, D-O-L-L. doll with her fingers. And Helen felt Annie's fingers moving, but she did not know what this woman was trying to tell her. She did not understand that each of those finger signs was its own letter, and that the letters spelled the word doll. And she pushed Annie away. So now we know this is Annie Sullivan. So I'm going to show you these two. So this is Annie and Helen. And you can see that Annie is holding her hand while she makes the signs. And here's a picture of Helen feeling water coming out of this well. And we're going to learn a little bit more about what that situation was like. The new teacher did not give up. She gave Helen a piece of cake and spelled the word cake against her hand. C-A-K-E. Helen made the signs with her own fingers, but still she did not understand what they meant. Over the next days and weeks, Annie put many different things into Helen's hands and spelled out the words. She tried to teach her words like pin and hat and cup. To Helen, it all seemed very odd. She grew tired of this strange woman always taking her hand. Sometimes she grew angry with Annie and began striking out at the darkness around her. She kicked and she scratched. She screamed and she growled. She broke plates and lamps. Sometimes Annie wondered if she would ever be able to help little Ellen break out of her lonely world of darkness and silence. But she promised herself that she would never give up. Then one morning, Helen and Annie were walking outside when they passed an old well. Annie took Helen's hand and put it under the water spout while she pumped. As the cold water rushed forth, Annie spelled water, W-A-T-E-R. Helen stood still. In one hand, she felt the cool gushing water, and in the other hand, she felt Annie's fingers making the signs over and over again. Suddenly, a thrill of hope and joy filled her little heart. She understood that water meant this wonderful, cool something that was flowing over her hand. She understood at last what Annie had been trying to show her for days and weeks. She saw now that everything has a name, and that she could use her fingers to spell out each name. Helen ran, laughing and crying back to the house, pulling Annie along with her. She touched everything that she could lay her hands on, asking for their names: chair, table, door, mother, father, baby, and many more. There were so many wonderful words to learn, but no one was more wonderful than the word Helen learned when she touched Annie to ask her name. And Annie spelled T-E-A-C-H-E-R, teacher. She didn't give her name. She told her who she was, what her title was to Helen. Helen Keller never stopped learning. She learned to read with her fingers and how to write and even how to speak. She went to school and to college, and Annie went with her to help her learn. Helen and Annie became friends for life. Helen Keller grew up to be a great woman. She devoted her life to helping people who could not see or hear. She worked hard and wrote books and traveled across the seas. Everywhere she went, she brought people courage and hope. Presidents and kings greeted her, and the whole world grew to love her. Helen, a child that had begun in the darkest and loneliest, turned into a life full of much life and joy. And the most important day in my life, Helen said, was the day my teacher came to me. So here's Helen as an adult reading with her hands. It's called Braille. And she too went on to teach other children. So I hope this inspires you. Make sure and tell your teachers how much you appreciate them this week. And we'll see you later. Bye-bye.